In 2008, I bought a Nikon D300 camera specifically for taking pictures of dragonflies in flight. Already at that time I knew that I wanted to freeze the wing motion in order to reveal the details of the veins, which in turn tells me what the dragonfly is doing, like turning or hovering or forward motion. On the 11th of September 2010, I finally took a picture I was pleased with. This one here. But that state only lasted for a day. Looking at the picture, I see a couple of things that could be improved. First, the abdomen is clearly out of focus and the wings are blurred. That's mostly motion blur though. My camera settings were 1/2000th of a second shutter speed, aperture f4, ISO 400. So I decided I needed a 1/4000th of a second to freeze the wings, and at least f8, maybe f11, to get the whole dragonfly in fairly good focus. But that would mean shooting at ISO 3200, and I wasn't happy going much beyond 400 with the D300. I regretfully concluded that I would need to wait for a much better camera to be released. I had not thought about using flash then. I was thinking that as flash duration was just over 1,000th of a second, it wouldn't work. So I first upgraded to a Nikon D810, but used it in DX crop mode for frame rate. Then acquired the Nikon 300 f4 PF lens, which greatly increased my ability to track the dragonfly's flight because it's so much lighter. And then I acquired the SB910 Speedlight with additionally a battery pack and a better beamer. This was after much calculation and supported by expert opinion that the flash would be able to keep up with the D810's 7 frames per second rate using that combination of hardware. This proved to be true, but the batteries do seem to lose some of their recycling speed over the years, so I need to buy some new ones at the moment. With this combination, I had the technical capability to shoot at 1/4000th of a second at f8. The D810 at ISO 800 at least matches the D300 at ISO 400. I think it's better actually. And in addition, I have another 25% cropping power due to the 36 megapixel sensor. So that brings me to the situation on the 11th of September 2016 when I took this photo. I like it a lot, but my aesthetic leanings are still for a focus point a bit further back, roughly at the rear wing distance. The eyes are very sharp, but the abdomen isn't. I have to disagree with the general opinion that focusing on the eyes is best for wildlife. For vertebrate wildlife, it's indeed true. The vertebrate eye is movable, and therefore it's a point of expressiveness. At the very least. I'm not inclined to go further than that though. You can see where the animal is looking. But the invertebrate eye is immobile. Expressiveness in the dragonfly is above all in the wings, in particular also the turn of the head, both in direction relative to the thorax and abdomen, but mostly in the way the wing veins are being bent by the air pressure. So my preference is for the focus to be near the rear wing and allowing depth of field to cover adequately the forewing and the head and much of the abdomen. If we contrast this picture with the next one here, we can see that the focus point is now on segment 3 of the abdomen, a little too far back, so the head is a little more blurry than I care for. But the abdomen looks very good in this turning shot. I slightly prefer this one to the first one, but we can do better. This third shot here has the full length of the dragonfly in focus. Head, thorax, abdomen, and even the anal appendages are sharp. You can even see a strand of spiderweb it is dragging behind it. And this is shot not even using flash. The slower shutter speed means that a little motion blur combined with a lack of depth of field in the wings. And this is largely confined to the part of the wings distal to the nodes. The proximate halves of the wings are reasonably sharp, and that's the vital area for expressiveness. In this case, however, the arch of the body tells the full tale. I'm very pleased indeed with this picture. Having acquired the equipment, I now had to develop a technique for reliably capturing dragonflies in full flight, such that I could reasonably expect to have success every day the weather conditions were good. Hovering dragonflies were not an issue, as these pictures of first Eichner Junkea and then these three of Eichner Kyanea show. But how to reliably get dragonflies that virtually never hover, such as Eichner grandis? The answer came to me on July the 9th, 2017, in Cat Chen, Vietnam, of all places. I observed this dragonfly patrolling back and forth across a ford. I realised that his path was relatively predictable in such a restricted area, and that I could just fix the focus at a desired distance. I found about 3 to 5 metres usually works well, and expect it to fly through the focus zone. In this case, he happened to turn at the focus point, an unusual but not too rare occurrence, thankfully. I've used this technique very productively over the years, especially on Eichner grandis at the small ponds in Priory Meadow. In this first photo, you can see him just starting his turn, and the wings are well displayed. In this next photo, he maintains a head-on appearance, and here focus on the face is important, as there is nothing else to look at really, just the leading edge of the wing. For other species, pure virtuosity is needed sometimes. This picture of Corduligasta boltonii was taken in July 29 on the River Mite near Eskdale. I doubt if I'll manage to get anything like it again in a hurry, and I can't see me besting it. I'm very pleased with it though. After a few years of doing this, I was achieving roughly a 25% success rate when, that is, I managed to track the dragonfly successfully. Not at all easy. But I very rarely managed any male-male interaction shots like this one here. This arose when trying to track one of the males concerned. Miraculously, the focus distance was at the same as when I was attempting the single shot. So I got him approaching, turning, and then this interaction with the other one. So in July of 2021, I started to think about a specification for a new camera that might satisfy me. It would have to be mirrorless, because that's the future, but it would have to have a near zero lag on the EVF and a high frame rate. Then in October of that year, Nikon announced the Z9, which fitted the bill completely, and with specs to spare. I saved up for it, ordered it in March, and it arrived in August. Within 2 weeks I was getting shots like this one of Eichner grandis, and this one of Eichner Junkea. Nothing particularly better than I could get with the D810, but I was still learning the camera, and already my hit rate had improved. Using flash, I can photograph at 10 frames per second, when the batteries are fresh, that is, with a success rate of about 40% when tracking successfully. And that too is easier with the Z9's fast 120 frame per second refresh rate on the EVF. I find it easier than with the optical viewfinder of the D810 in fact. When the light is good enough, I can shoot at 20 frames per second. That is no flash. That raises the success rate to nearly 100%. That is, if I manage to track the dragonfly, I can be sure that at least one of the frames will be in good focus. But I want to be able to take advantage of the Z9's 3D tracking in order to get more turning and interaction shots. In order to do this though, I first have to acquire focus. The Z9 has animal tracking, but dragonflies are not in the training model. My experience with subject detection on dragonflies so far is on the rare occasions that it spots them, and it's more likely to identify a reed as an animal than the dragonfly, I find. But on those rare occasions it tends to pick up on dark spots on the abdomen, no doubt mistaking them for a pair of eyes. I, however, have had success in acquiring focus on hovering dragonflies and then switching to 3D tracking in the hope of something happening, as was the case for this Sympetrum striolatum and this Eichner mixta. This shot, by the way, was my favourite of 2022. I'm hoping for better things in 2023. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.